Hello and welcome to Toy and Stitches. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to crochet a top-down filet top, and I'm going to be showing you how to work out your neckline, how to split for your sleeves, and how to make it whatever length that you would like. To make my top, I'm going to be using some sport weight acrylic yarn. I'm using Brava Sport, and this is 340 yards in this 100 grand skein. Along with this, I'm going to be using a 5mm crochet hook. You're also going to need 4 stitch markers, a tape measure, scissors, and a tapestry needle. So go ahead, grab your supplies, and let's get started. To make our top, we're going to need 3 measurements to start out, and the first one is how wide you want your neck opening. So for me, I just take my tape measure, and normally I would do this in front of the mirror so I can see my measurements, but I just want it to start on one side, just about in the center of my collarbone, and then going just across the front to the other side, right in the center of my other collarbones, just like evenly on either side. Place your tape measure about how wide you want it, and then just make a note of the measurement. For me, that's about 7.5 inches. So that's how wide my neck opening is going to be on the front and on the back. And then now you want to know your armhole depth. So you just want to take your tape measure and place it on top of your shoulder, and then just come down to about how deep you want your arm opening to be. So for me, I'm going to come down to about here. And for me, that is about 6.5 inches. So that's how deep my arm opening is going to be. And then finally, we need to know our bust measurements. You just want to measure around the widest part of your bust. So just place the tape measure around the widest part of your bust. And for me, that is about 35 inches. So that's my actual bust measurement. I'm not going to be adding any ease into this. So once you know how wide you want your neck opening, your armhole depth, and your bust measurement, just make a note of all of those, and now we'll get started. All right, so now that we've taken our measurements, all we need to do now is a quick little bit of math to figure out the circumference of our neck opening. And so our neck opening is going to be a rectangle. And for me, I know that I measured across the front, and mine was going to be 7.5 inches. So the front and the back would be 7.5 inches. So how I figure out how many inches to put on the side, I'm just going to multiply this number by 0.75 because I want this side to be about 3/4 of the length of the front and the back. So all I need to do is just go 7.5 times 0.75. And that's going to give me 5.6. But what I'm going to do, I'm just going to round down to an even 5. So this side is going to be 5 inches, and this side is going to be 5 inches. And now all we need to do is add all these numbers together to get the total circumference of the neck opening. So 10 plus 15. So our total neck opening is going to be 25 inches. So that is how long I need to make my chain in order to get all the way around my neck, across the front, across the back, and over my shoulders. So that's what you want to do. You want to, whatever number you measured for the neck opening, you want to write that down at the front and the back. Then you want to multiply that number by 0.75, and then whatever you get, just round it to either up or down to an even number, and then that's what one side's going to be and the other side. Then you're going to add it all together, and that total inches is how long you need to make your chain. So now I know I need to start off by making a chain that is 25 inches long. All right, so now that we know how long we need to make our chain in order to get started, I'm just going to grab my yarn, and I'm going to chain in multiples of 2 until I get to my desired length, and then I'm going to add 1 more. So that's what you need to do in order to make your chain. You need to chain a multiple of 2, and then once you've gotten to your desired length, just add 1 more. All right, so I've completed my chain, and I have a total of 117 chains, which is my multiple of 2 plus 1. So our first step is I'm going to work a row of single crochet, and that's going to be my foundation row, just to give it a little bit of sturdiness and extra stretch around the neck, because I find when I work directly into the chain on a top like this, it just feels a little bit stiff So my first step is I'm going to work a row of single crochet. So in my second chain from the hook, I'm going to work 1 single crochet, and I'm also going to be working into the bottom bump because that's just what I prefer. But if you want to work into the back loop, that's totally fine. So I'm going to work a single crochet in the second chain from the hook and in each chain all the way across. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll meet you once I get to the end of the row. All right, so I've finished working my row of single crochet, and I've counted to make sure that I have my multiple of 2. I have 116 single crochet. So now before we join and start working in the round, we have to map out where we're going to place our corners. So you want to grab your notes from where you took your measurements. You also want to grab your stitch markers. And my first step is I'm going to just lay a section of my row of single crochet down, and I'm going to measure out how many stitches I have in 5 inches. So I'm just going to place my tape measure down on top of it and then count how many stitches I have inside that 5 inches. I have 24 stitches. So I have 24, so then I'll put 24 on the other side. So now, so both the shoulders are going to give me 48 stitches. So now all I'm going to do is subtract 48 from my total number of stitches. I have 116. So now I'm left with 68 total stitches, and then I'm going to divide that number in 2 so that I know I'll put 1/2 in the front and 1/2 in the back. So now along the front and the back, I will have 34 stitches. So once you do that really quickly, you'll know how many stitches you'll have in the front, the back, and over the shoulders. So once you have those numbers down, then all you're going to do is grab your row and start counting out your stitches and placing your stitch markers where your corners are going to be. But one more thing, just remember that because we haven't joined yet, on one side, you're going to have to split this number again. And this is going to be, what is that? 17 on either side. So just because we haven't actually joined, we still have one straight row and we're gonna be working in the round. Just know that along the back, because I'm putting my join in the back, I'm just gonna split it so I know that on one side I should have 17 on the other side, but once I start counting out the stitches, you'll understand what I mean. So once you've counted out all those stitches, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna grab my row, and with the side that I would start on, so this is the side with my live yarn, I'm going to place that here. And now from this side, I'm going to count 17. And then I'm going to place a stitch marker in that 17th stitch. And then now I'm going to count 24. So I'm not going to count the stitch that has the stitch marker in it. I'm going to start in the next stitch. So now I'm going to count 24, which is going to be across my shoulder. Then I'm going to place a stitch marker in that stitch there. So now just really quick, you can kind of see where we're going here. So that's half of the back, that is across one shoulder, and now I'm going to go across the front. I know across the front I need 34 stitches, so I'm going to count 34 stitches. Then I'm going to place my stitch marker in that stitch. And now I'm going to count 24 to go down the other shoulder. Place my final stitch marker. And now after this stitch marker, I should have 17 stitches. 17. Okay, so now I know I have all my stitches, and I now know where I'm going to be putting my corners. So if I lay it out here for you, this is what it will look like. So this is our neck opening. So once I start, these two are going to get joined, and then I'm just going to work in the round. So then that's my first corner, my second corner, third, and fourth. So once you have this all laid out, then we're ready to start working our filet stitch. So to start, I'm just going to place my yarn back on my hook. And for me, I'm going to be working in continuous rounds so that I have a distinct right and wrong side. If you don't want that and you want it to be reversible, you can just work in turned rows. So you'll just turn going one way and then coming back the other way. So to start and to join without twisting, you want to make sure that when you grab the other end, you're going along the tops of the stitches, just so you're working into the top of the stitch and not where you started on your chain, because this is actually my chain that I worked into, and this is the top of my first single crochet with the chain 1 on the side right there. So I'm going to insert my hook under the top 2 loops of that first stitch. And before you start, you want to make sure that your yarn isn't trapped in the center of the project. You want to make sure that is out. And then I'm just going to work a slip stitch to join the round. And I'm going to pull that slip stitch very tight just so you don't see it. And now I'm going to chain 4, and the chain 4 is going to count as a double crochet and a chain 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, which is connected to that first stitch that we worked the slip stitch into. We're going to skip the next stitch and then work a double crochet in the following stitch. And now we're going to chain 1, skip 1 stitch, work a double crochet in the next stitch. Again, chain 1, skip 1 stitch, work a double crochet in the next stitch. And I'm going to continue doing that until I get to my first stitch marker. All right, so I'm coming up to my stitch marker, and just before my stitch marker, I have 1 stitch. So I'm going to chain 1, skip that stitch, and work a double crochet, chain 2, double crochet into the stitch that I had my stitch marker. And this is our first increase. And now we're just going to continue working chain 1, skipping 1 stitch, working a double crochet in the next stitch until we get to our next stitch marker where we'll place another increase. So just continue working chain 1, skip 1 stitch, double crochet in the next stitch until we get to our next stitch marker. Okay, I'm at my next stitch marker, and just before I have 1 stitch. So now I'm going to chain 1 to skip over that stitch, and then into the stitch that I have my stitch marker, I'm going to work an increase. So I'm going to work a double crochet, chain 2, double crochet in the same stitch. And then I'm going to continue by chaining 1, skipping 1 stitch, and working a double crochet in the next stitch. And I'm just going to continue doing that until I get to my next stitch marker where I'll place another increase. And that's how we're going to work all the way around. We're just going to work chain 1, skip 1 stitch, double crochet in the next stitch until we get to where we've placed our stitch markers. And then into where we have our stitch markers, we do an increase. So I'm just going to continue working until I get to the end of the round. All right, and when you get to the end of the round, you're going to have 1 stitch left. So now I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to skip that stitch, and then I'm going to join to the 3rd chain. So when we started, we did a chain 4. So you just want to find the 3rd chain and then just join to that 3rd chain with a slip stitch. And that'll be the end of round 1. So now for round 2, If you want to work in turned rows, you're going to turn your work and you're going to chain 4 and you're just going to start working going that way. I'm working in continuous rounds, so I'm going to chain 4 and I'm going to skip over that chain 1 and just work into the next double crochet. Now I'm going to chain 1, skip the chain 1, and then work into the next double crochet. And I'm going to continue working just like that until I get to my corner. So go ahead and do that and I'll meet you in the first corner. Okay, so I'm coming up to my first corner here and we have a chain 1 right before the first double crochet of our corner. So we're going to chain 1, work into this double crochet, and now we're going to chain 1 again, and now into the chain 2 space we're going to work a double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, and now we're going to chain 1 and work into this double crochet here. Then we're going to chain 1 again, skip over that chain 1 space and work into the next double crochet. And you're just going to continue working, chaining 1 and then skipping the chain 1 space and working into the next double crochet until you get to the next corner. So go ahead and do that and I'll meet you when we get to the next corner. All right, I'm coming up to my next corner, and just before the first double crochet of our corner there is a chain 1. So you want to chain 1 so you can skip over that chain 1 from the previous row and then work into the double crochet. And then before working into the chain 2 space, you want to chain 1 and then into the chain 2 space, work a double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, and then chain 1, working into the other double crochet from the corner, and then chain 1 and continue working across the other side until you get to the other corner. So that's just how you're going to continue working all the way around. You're just going to work in pattern chain 1, skipping over the chain 1 from the previous round and working into the next double crochet, and just continue working like that until you get to your next corner. All right, so I'm coming up to my third corner and I'm going to chain 1, working a double crochet into that double crochet, then chain 1, now into the chain 2 space, working a double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, then chain 1, working into the other double crochet from the corner, then chain 1 and continue working your chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet until you get to your next corner, and then you can go ahead and finish off. So go ahead and just continue working, work your final corner, and then I'll meet you at the end of the round. All right, so I'm going to start round 3 with you, and then I'll leave you after the first corner to finish off the rest of the round. And after we're finished round 3, we're going to try it on just to make sure it goes over our head nicely and it's sitting about where you want it to before we continue on. So to start, I'm going to chain 4 and just double crochet in the next double crochet, chain 1, double crochet in the next double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and I'm just going to do that until I get to my first corner here. All right, I'm coming up to my corner. So now I'm going to chain 1 and work a double crochet into the first half of that increase, chain 1, now going into the chain 2 space and working an increase, double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet in this double crochet right here, and then chain 1, double crochet in the next double crochet, and that's just how you're going to continue right around. So go ahead and do that and I'll meet you at the end of the round. All right, so this is what my first 3 rounds look like. It fit comfortably over my head, and it's sort of sitting just as wide as I want it to be. Once I work a few more rows, I am going to try it on again before I split for the arm opening and the sleeves if you're going to be adding sleeves. But for now, I'm comfortable with it, so I'll continue working. And we're going to be working down until we get to our armhole depth, but I'll show you how to work that out. So if you're comfortable with where it is right now, then we'll continue on to our next step. All right, so once you're comfortable with your neck opening and it's fitting nice and comfortably, all you're going to be doing now is just continue working in the round until you've achieved your armhole depth. And to measure that out, once you get to that point, you're actually going to measure it on the diagonal going down the corner right here. So right now, obviously I'm not there yet, but this is, instead of going straight down, you're going to go across like that. So I'm going to continue working until I get there, and then I'll measure it out with you just so you see what that looks like. So continue working, and I'll meet you back when it's time to measure out my armhole depth. All right, so this is where I'm at right now. I'm at the point where I'm going to measure to see if I have achieved my armhole depth. And I just fold it in half evenly like this, like I've done here. And then I'm going to grab my tape measure, and I'm going to measure from this corner here to the end of my piece. And I am just at my 6.5 inches, which is perfect. If I was a little bit short, I wouldn't add any more rows, because you have to consider the fact that when you add more rows, it gets wider. And for this, we do want it to fit close to the body. So we're going to be working with a little bit of negative ease, just so it fits nice and close. So just know the further down you go, the wider this gets, which is going to make the piece bigger. So now I'm going to measure across to see how wide it is. So from this corner here to this corner here is where I'm going to be measuring. And that gives me 15.5 inches. And my bust measurement is 35. So I know I'm going to want to add a couple of inches under the armpit just to make it a little bit wider, because I'm going to be making it go up to 33. So I'm going to be using about 2 inches of negative ease. So I'm making it 2 inches smaller than my actual bust. So I want to add in a couple of inches when I make my chains to join the front to the back. And all right, so this is what it looks like. As you can see, it's just where I want it to be, falling right where my arm opens up. I could have made it a little bit closer to my arm, but I do like a little bit of extra room under my armpit. So it's up to you if you want it to fit really close to your arm or if you want a little bit more room. So I just went down a couple of rows from where my arm opens up to where I left it. So this is good for me. I do like that. So now we're going to move on and split. So we leave our arm opening and then continue to work down the bodice. So that's what we're going to do now. We're just going to join the front to the back and then start working down. All right, so now to figure out how many chains we're going to need in order to join the front to the back, first we're going to want to measure across to see where we are. And when I measure across the front of mine just before, I was at about 15.5 inches. So now, because I know I'm working up to 33 inches all the way around my bust, I now know I need 2 inches. So I'm going to add 1 inch here and 1 inch here. So across the front, I have 15.5, across the back, 15.5. Add that number together, that would give me 31. Now to get to 33, I need 2 inches. So now I'm going to measure how many stitches I have inside 1 inch. So now for me, that is counting the double crochets and the chain spaces. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for me. So now what I'm going to do is add 5 chains in between the front and the back as I'm working my next round. Now, when you're doing this, you don't want to add too many inches under the arm. Otherwise, there's going to be a gap. The arm opening is going to start to fit a little bit loose. If you have a bigger bust and you're going to need more than 2 inches on either side, which is a total of 4 inches to get to your desired bust measurement, I wouldn't suggest adding all of those inches under the arm. I wouldn't suggest adding any more than 2 inches under each arm opening, because what you don't want is for the base of the arm to start fitting loose. You want it to fit closer to the body. So if you need more than 2 inches on each side, I'm going to show you how to increase. So at this point, just add in, so just figure out how many inches you're going to be adding under your arm opening on each side. We'll work that. And then if you need to increase further, I'm going to show you how to do that once we've connected the front to the back. So now all I'm going to do is I'm going to start working again. And I'm going to be working as we were before. So I'm going to start my row and I'm going to meet you when I get to my first corner. Okay, so I'm coming up to my first corner and I'm going to be working into the first double crochet of the corner. So I'm going to chain 1 and I'm going to work into this double crochet here. And then working into the chain 2 space, I'm going to chain 1 and work 1 double crochet into the chain 2 space. And now I'm going to work the number of chains I need in order to get to my 1 inch. And your chains need to be an odd number. I need 5 chains, but however many chains you need, either add or subtract 1 so you have an odd number of chains. So I'm going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now I'm just going to grab my other side. And making sure that the outside of the arm openings are sitting together before working into this chain 2 space here. So now I'm going to yarn over, work into this chain 2 space, 1 double crochet, and then I'm going to chain 1 and work into this double crochet here. That's the one on the side of the increase. And now I'm going to chain 1 and continue working in pattern all the way across until I get to my other increase. So just go ahead and continue working and meet me when you get to your other increase. Okay, so I'm coming up to what would have been my next increase, and I just chained 1 and now I'm going to work into this first double crochet here. And now I'm going to chain 1 again and then work 1 double crochet into the chain 2 space. And now I'm going to work my 5 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to grab the other side, ensuring that the outside of the arm opening are together so that I know where I'm connecting the right side to the right side. And then I'm going to yarn over into the chain 2 space, work a double crochet. Then I'm going to chain 1, work into this double crochet, which is half of that V-stitch essentially for the increase. And now I'm going to chain 1, skip that chain space and just work into my next double crochet. And I'm just going to continue doing that until I get to the end of my round. So just continue working and I'll meet you at the end of the round. All right, so I'm at the end of my round. I'm just going to join. And now I'm going to chain 4 to start my next round. And I'm just going to continue working in pattern until I get to my chains underneath the arm opening. And I'm going to show you how to work into the chains. So just continue working until you're ready to work into your chain and I'll meet you there. So I'm just about to start working into my chain. I have 1 more stitch to work into before I'm there. So I'm going to work into this double crochet. So now what I'm going to do to work along the chain, I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to skip the first chain and then I'm going to work under the top 2 loops of the next chain. So skip 1 chain and then under the top 2 loops of the next chain, work a double crochet, chain 1, skip the next chain and then just work into the following chain under the top 2 loops. And now once you've worked like that across, when you're almost ready to start working along the back of your top, you should have one more chain left before you work into the next double crochet. So just remember to chain one, skip that chain, and then work into the top of the double crochet. So that's what it should look like right at the base of the arm opening. On this side, you work into a double crochet, so there should be a chain between the last stitch worked on the body of the garment and the next double crochet worked under the arm. And then before you get to the other side, there should be a chain space before working into the first double crochet on the other side. And that's just how you're going to continue working. So you're going to continue working in pattern until you get to the other side, and you're going to repeat what we just did. But I'll continue working around and I'll meet you when I'm working into my other chain. Okay, so I'm just about to start working under my other arm. So I'm just going to work into this double crochet right here. Then I'm going to chain one, skip the first chain, and then work into the next chain. And again, I'm working under the top two loops of the chain. Then I'm going to chain one again, skip the next chain, working a double crochet in the following chain. Chain one, and then ensuring that there is one chain before you work into your next double crochet. And that's just how you would work across the chain under the arm. And then from this point, you're just going to continue working around and around until you've achieved your desired length. I just finished off my round, and now the front and the back are joined under the arm. Once I've joined the front to the back, I like to try it on and make sure it's not too tight under the arm, and that also it is fitting nice and close towards the body and not sticking out. So once I'm happy with how everything is laying down, nice and comfortably, not too tight or too loose, then I know I'm good to continue to work down. If you don't need to add any more inches to go over your bust, then from this point you can just work down until your top has reached the desired length. But if you do need to add a couple more inches, I'm going to show you how to increase on this round. So I'm going to start my round like I normally would, and I will meet you when I get under the arm. So I'm going to start my row, and then I'll meet you when I get under the arm. Okay, so I've gotten to my arm opening. And when I'm going to increase, normally I do the increases if I'm working on a longer piece and I'm going over my hips. But when we're under the arm, what you want to first find is the center stitch. So because this is one side of my garment and that is the other side, under my arm I only have 2 stitches. So if you have only an even number of stitches, say you had 4, what you want to do, so you'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, you would work into the third one, going towards the front of the piece. So for me, I'm going to work into this stitch here in order to do an increase. If you had 3 stitches under the arm, work into the one that is in the very center. So if you had 1, 2, 3, work into the third. If you have 2 or 4, if you have 2, work into the second. If you have 4, work into the third. That's just how I kind of map it out, because I want the increase to remain under the arm. I don't want it to be visible on the front or the back. So I'm going to chain 1, work into this first double crochet here, chain 1, and now into this one, I'm going to work a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet into this same stitch. So now I've increased by 1 stitch, and if you're doing this, you would repeat this on the other side. And then what you would do from this point is you have to work 1 row after this. Because what you don't want, because say you worked this row and then you came around and did another increase, what is going to start to happen is you're going to start to form a V shape under your arm opening. So what you want to do is when you do a row of increase, work 1 row without increasing, and then if you need more space, work another increase. And that's how you want to work your increases, right under your arm, so it comes down the side of the garment, so it's not visible on the front or the back, but just making sure that you're working one row of increase and then a row without the increase, a row with an increase, a row without the increase to keep it straight and to not have it going off into sort of a weird V shape under the arm opening. So that's how you would increase until you've achieved how much space you need to cover your bust. So from this point on, just continue working down until your top has reached the desired length that you would like, and then we'll finish off. All right, once your top has reached the desired length that you were going for, you're just gonna cut your yarn, fasten off, and weave in your ends. When you're weaving in your ends, just remember that where we started, there's going to be a gap in the first row because we started with a row of single crochet. You just want to make sure you take your tail and sew that little gap together and then finish weaving in the end. And then also, because I worked in continuous rounds, there is going to be this distinct line down the back of the top. If you don't want to see this, then work in turned rows. That's how you'll get rid of this line right here. And then finally, if you want to add sleeves, I'm going to show you how to do that quickly. But one other thing I wanted to show you, I'm also using this method to make a dress. So I'm just going to show you what the increase looks like on the side of the dress that I'm working on, just so you know how it will look if you work increases on your top. So on the side of my dress here, I have an increase right here. So it's just me working that double crochet, chain one, double crochet into one stitch, and then the following rows I just continued, and then it just kind of gave me a little bit of extra room to go down over my hip. But then from a distance you won't notice that increase, which is great, and then you won't see it on the front or the back of the garment. So right now I'm just going to show you how to quickly add sleeves if you want to do that, and then we will be all done. To add the sleeve, I'm going to use a contrast color so it's easier for you to see what I'm doing, especially under the arm right here. I'm going to join in one of the double crochets under the arm. You can do it at the one in the center, front or back, it's up to you. So I'm just going to, with a slip knot on my hook, I'm just going to insert into the base of a double crochet and work a slip stitch, tighten that up, and then I'm going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And now I have a chain right here. I'm going to work a double crochet on top of the next double crochet. And now I am in what is the corner. So where we split for the sleeves, right here, you will see this V stitch here. And this stitch is the one that is in the chain 2 space. So I'm going to work into the side of this one. I have a chain space right here. So I'm going to chain 1, work into the top of this double crochet. So that's the base of the stitch and that's closer to the top. I'm going to yarn over and go under the 2 loops on the side of that stitch and place my double crochet there. Chain 1 to skip over the base of this same double crochet, and now we're into what was the chain 2 space. I'm going to yarn over, work a double crochet in this space, chain 1, and then work into the next double crochet. And from this point we're just up on the front of the garment here, so we're just going to chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet all the way around. So go ahead and do that, and then I'll come back and show you how to finish off this little corner right here. And then from that point you'll just continue working in rounds until your sleeve is as long as you want it to be. So just work all the way around until you get to what would have been the chain 2 space from where we split for the sleeves, and I'll meet you there. Okay, so I'm coming up to the chain 2 space. So this is the chain 2 space, and this was the 1 double crochet on one side of that chain 2 space. I've worked into that double crochet. I have chained 1. I'm going to work a double crochet into the chain 2 space. Now I'm going to chain 1. And right now I have a double crochet right here. So this chain 1 is going to go over the bottom half of this double crochet. And now I'm going to work under 2 loops of the top half of this double crochet. So I'm just going to yarn over and just pick up 2 loops on the side of this stitch here. work a double crochet. And then now we have one more stitch here that we need to work into. So I'm going to chain 1, work into the base of that stitch. And now there is a chain space just before where we chain 3. We're going to chain 1, go over this space, and then just join to the top of that chain 3 there to close the round. All right, and that's what it's going to look like right there. Oh. And from this point, you're just going to continue working in rounds until your sleeve is as long as you want it to be. If you worked in turned rounds on the body of the garment, work in turned rounds on your sleeve. If you worked in continuous rounds on the body of the garment, then work in continuous rounds on your sleeve so the stitches look the same. And that's it. You're just going to continue working until your sleeve is the length that you want it to be, then fasten off, weave in all your ends, and then you'll be done. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take care and bye for now.